I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world?
In a world filled with hype, strategies, and massive promotions, Taehyung thrived differently. Without the loud voices of his agency, without overt protection, he kept walking, even running. He was left behind in silence. Not through harsh words or open ouster, but through absence, a quieter, yet profound form of indifference. But from that silence, Taehyung didn't sink. Instead, he showed another face of resilience. Not resistance, but consistency. Not complaints, but concrete actions. He instilled new values about what it means to be a true artist. He proved that recognition isn't something to be pursued through the spotlight, but rather built through work and character. Taehyung is the epitome of an artist who doesn't lose himself even when the world tries to steer him in a different direction. His every move speaks louder than any official statement. He is a presence on screen without fuss. He creates without having to explain his intentions. And that's precisely what draws the public to him. Many are beginning to realize that BTS's V is a reflection of sincerity in an industry that often creates artificial images. He never tries to be anyone other than himself. In every live broadcast, he greets ARMY without a script. In his music, he shares his feelings without censorship. And from that, the public understands that they aren't loving a product, but a human being. Taehyung never makes a fuss when he's passed over for promotions. He doesn't put anyone down when their name isn't prioritized. But the public knows that his silence is the most elegant way to speak. What hurts isn't just the agency's silence, but the fact that that silence keeps repeating itself. But Taehyung continues to demonstrate an open attitude. He gives his fans space to understand without needing to point fingers. Gradually, the world is starting to take notice. What was once considered merely the visual of a major group has now transformed into a person with their own color and voice. He not only attracts attention, but also empathy. Fans around the world are starting to move. Not because they're moved, but because they see. They know that someone who continues to give deserves better justice. But Taehyung seems to want to show that true love doesn't come from the spotlight. It exists in loyalty that grows slowly. In relationships built on honesty. Every solo project, from music to photo shoots, conveys one message: this is me, not a package. He refuses to be a replica of a success formula. He chooses to be the most honest version of himself. And in that choice, the public sees an inspiring figure. Not only because he's talented, but because he dares to be different. He doesn't chase rankings, he pursues personal relevance. Amidst a celebrity culture often filled with demands and scripts, Taehyung remains true to himself. He makes authenticity seem simple, even though everyone knows it's the hardest thing to maintain. He never forces the world to love him. But the world falls in love with how he perseveres. He doesn't offer drama, but rather from his peace of mind that sympathy comes. Over time, more and more people are realizing that not all artists need layers of protection to shine. Sometimes, they just need space. And Taehyung has created that space himself. He has moved away from the spotlight of management, but has instead become closer to the public's heart. The distance that formed between him and his agency actually paved the way for a more intimate connection with his audience. While the world debated who was worthy of support, Taehyung didn't speak out. But with his consistent presence, he seemed to be saying, support the honest, not the loud. In many ways, he became a new symbol in the industry. A symbol that authenticity still has a place. That there are other ways to rise above the ordinary, without losing your way. Many young artists began to look to Taehyung as a role model. He was no longer just a member of a famous group. He was a figure who had managed to grow despite being left alone in a lonely alley. Taehyung didn't use silence as a form of resistance, but as a space for growth. He didn't rush to define himself, knowing that time and his work would speak more truthfully. Now, every step he takes isn't just a personal journey. It represents the many voices that have been marginalized in an overly judgmental industry. The public no longer asks, what does he have, but, how does he manage to stand alone? And the answer lies in one thing, a commitment to self-truth. HYBE could have denied abandoning him. But the public already had their own opinion. And amidst all this, Taehyung didn't retaliate. He simply kept creating, kept moving forward. A lesson emerged: being authentic is the quietest form of courage. And Taehyung has proven that courage can create a love greater than any campaign. He grew not because he was raised by a system, but because he was firmly rooted. He is an artist who knows his way, even when the spotlight is no longer on him. In the ever-changing music industry, one thing remains relevant: sincerity. And amidst the hustle and bustle of the entertainment market, Taehyung stands as a figure who brings that meaningful silence to the forefront. While most artists need a stage to perform, Taehyung makes himself the stage. Wherever he goes, people pay attention not for promotion, but out of organic curiosity. He doesn't ask the public to trust him. but that trust comes from his consistency. He presents himself not just as an entertainer, but as a real person. And in a world filled with imagery, honesty is a luxury. Taehyung proved that growth doesn't have to be a public affair. He let time do its work. He nurtured himself in silence. And when the world began to realize, he had become more than just a stage name, he had become a symbol of integrity. Music critics began to change the narrative. They no longer talked about him solely in the context of the group. Now, they saw him as an individual with a unique artistic approach, with a color that couldn't be replicated. He sang with a tone that wasn't drawn out. He spoke with a language that wasn't contrived. And through that, his songs felt touching. Not because of lavish production, but because of honest emotion. Taehyung never positioned himself as the center of attention. But the public continued to surround him. Perhaps because in every move, he showed that he wasn't seeking to be the greatest, he just wanted to be himself. That's what kept ARMY going. They supported him not just out of loyalty, but because of a personal connection. Taehyung wasn't just a public figure to them, but also a friend in silence. In the industry, many artists lose their way when they're no longer pushed. But Taehyung found his way when they weren't guided. He chose his own path and proved that he could get there without guidance. His uncomplaining, yet persistent attitude has become a silent inspiration to many. He seems to be saying, if the world is silent to you, then let your steps make the noise. And indeed, those steps have now echoed throughout the world. From Korean and Japanese media, to European and American, many are beginning to focus on one thing: how one person can remain intact when no one greets them at the starting line. Taehyung grew not because of the pressure of the system, but because of the vitality within himself. He didn't become a star because he was directed. He became a star because he lit his own path. He is proof that authenticity never goes out of style. That in any industry, no matter how big, people still seek what can be felt, not just what can be seen. Now, his presence is a beacon of hope. That there is still a place for those who don't follow the mainstream. That it's still possible to survive amidst harsh industry standards without losing one's identity. He doesn't just create music, he creates feelings. And that's what sets him apart. His songs aren't just played, they're felt. His face isn't just recognized, but remembered for the depth of his eyes, not just his outward charm. The world may have been slow to recognize this side of Taehyung. But he's not in a rush. He knows that the strongest things don't need to be built quickly. They just need to be built right. And when many began to call him the most authentic figure in the music industry, Taehyung didn't celebrate with pomp and circumstance. He simply kept going. Because he knows that the true path never ends. Fans continue to prove their love not with shouts, but with their presence. They buy his music, not because of a viral campaign, but because they truly want to hear what's in the artist's heart. Taehyung has now reached a point few other artists have reached. He's not just liked, but respected. He's not just anticipated, but trusted. A position no amount of promotion can buy. He's not a symbol of rebellion, but of steadfastness. He doesn't create drama, but of depth. And in that simplicity, his power continues to grow.
I just need to carry on, 'cause society's a myth put there to make you sit. Listen to what they give. Don't ask questions, shut your lid. Yeah, don't ask questions, shut your lid. I need to run away from this and go get off the grid. Feel like my brain is overloaded, man, I'm losing it. Don't let them tell you what to do, man, they don't know shit. World blind, please Lord give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please Lord give me a sign, a sign. I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place.